Okay.
So just to explain what I'm doing this for.
Sure.
I go to a church nearby.
Okay.
And I'm trying to set a good example for church people.
Okay.
That we can have civil conversations about religion outside of church,
Okay.
And trying to encourage other people to do the same thing. So that's what it's for.
Okay.
But the question I run by everyone is what do you think happens after this life? Kind of a general question. But then specifically, whatever you doubt about it or believe about it, how did you get there?
Okay.
And my name's Jeff. First
Tom.
Tom, good to meet you.
Same.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you're gonna like my answers very much.
I feel like I've heard a lot.
You've probably heard quite a bit. I very much come from the perspective that we just die and we get buried in the ground and that's it. I don't really believe in an afterlife. Not really believe. I don't believe in one at all. I was brought up or raised Catholic. And sometime end of high school, beginning of undergrad, it kind of just came to the realization that I really didn't believe in higher power. Scientific background. I'm a doctor now myself.
You're
so,
what?
A doctor.
Oh,
So I think the initial kind of, I don't know if realization is right, but I came to not believe in a higher power just like of all of the things that I've kind of seen over the course of my life, and I don't know. There's a lot of bad things that happen to a lot of good people, and a lot of suffering, and it just doesn't quite make sense to me for there to be a higher power with all of that stuff going on. And I've had conversations with lots of people of varying religious and spiritual backgrounds, and it's just kind of, I don't know. That's kind of where I come from that perspective. So in terms of religious, being religious and there being an afterlife, I think I just end up being most comfortable just kind of focusing on the here and now, what I'm doing with people, whether they're family, friends, strangers on the side of the street, just interacting. And that's kind of where I came at from the profession that I chose to go into, is focusing all of my time and efforts on making the world as good as I possibly can. And I'm one person and have really very limited impact, but
definitely quite a strong concern about the bad that's happening in the world, wanting to improve it. Almost like I'm not trying to say anything about you, but if God's not going to do his part, well, I'm going to do mine.
Yes, that's quite an extreme thing, because
I know
I'm one person on this big rock in this infinite, expansive space. So I realize that what I'm doing has
we all want to do our part.
Little to no benefit, but
I don't know if you ever heard the starfish on the seashore analogy.
No.
Like some guy's walking along the seashore and he sees this guy, starfish or clams or something, but there's like millions of them washed up and they're dying on the seashore, and he picks one up and he throws it in. Throws one in,
sure.
And then he picks another one and throws it in, and the guy goes up to him and says, "What are you doing? You're not making any difference. What difference does it make?"
Sure.
And the guy says, "A lot of difference to the one I throw in."
Yeah. No, it's
so
very much, if everybody had the perspective of just trying to take care of one another and be kind and understanding, right? Then, grand scheme of things, everything gets a lot better.
Yeah.
I can't make people do certain things, and I can't make people be good people.
Yeah.
But as long as I'm, all I have control over is what I have control over, what I can do. So.
Where do you think that the bad does come from? If it's not, so if there's no God, it kind of begs the question, how do we determine bad?
It's a matter of, perspective, and there's a subjective component to it. But people dying, good or bad, it's kind of like the way of life. But when you see like a 20-something-year-old person come in from some type of accident.
Oh yeah. Do you work in an emergency situation?
But I'm in internal medicine. I work up on the floor, so I work through the ICU on a time-to-time basis. And when you see someone come in that's really incredibly sick, and there's really nothing you can do. There's a lot of suffering that they go through, that their family goes through, and it's all kind of like, someone gets hit by a car, or they get some type of weird infection. There's just a lot of random happenstance and random choice that goes on with all of that. So I don't know if there's necessarily a think there are some things that we would, in our subjective description say are bad or are good.
Yeah.
And there is like a lot of in between there, but people going through things or people suffering, period, would never be considered good. And I think that it's just, a lot of what we would perceive as bad is just from us be able to perceive and understand kind of the world around us.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily say that it comes from somewhere. It's just more.
It is what it is, right?
Things happen in the randomness that is the world, and everything kind of inherently, being unpredictable. That sometimes really great things happen, and sometimes really bad things happen. But it's just kind of how the world is.
You just want to go out and make a difference. Well, I want to thank you for your studies and the hard work you've put in, and someday I might be under your care. So, so I appreciate what you're doing.
Sure.
I don't know if you hear that very often.
No.
A lot of times I'll talk to really.
Not really ever, no.
I mean, I'll talk to like servicemen, and I want to thank them for their service.
Sure.
Well, you're in the same category.
It's a thankless job. That's okay.
Yeah.
Not in it for the pleases.
I'm actually a high school teacher, so.
Yeah.
But I get thanked a lot.
You probably don't get thanked as much as you feel like is appropriate or is actually necessary from whether you leave it to be or not. It's just one of those things where if you're doing things for the gratification of others, you're kind of barking up the wrong tree. It doesn't really matter what you're doing.
Right. So I'm surprised though that you don't not from your patients, like they don't come back and
not really.
Just don't express
so I work
it
down in the south suburbs, like 203rd. And off like 57 kind of a deal. So it's a very like socioeconomically impoverished area. People don't take care of themselves in to start off with. But then there's a lot of, we'll say, distrust and distaste with the medical community in the area that I practice in. So a lot of people just come in and medical field's out to get us.
Or they have an entitlement mentality or something.
It's less that. I think it's really more they don't trust us. So they come in and you say things that they don't want to hear.
Yeah.
And you're like, you need to stop doing this, you need to do this, you do this, and they don't like that. So it's, this 20-something-year-old going on 12 is telling me that I need to be doing this, I need to be doing this, and they don't appreciate that. But that's okay. It's, someone needs to say something to them sometime, and if it needs to be me, maybe, one out of every 5 people, it resonates and maybe they make a change.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, some people say thank you. I can't say that nobody does.
Yeah.
But I could probably, I'd say like in a month, maybe like 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As far as so I definitely see like there's as I talk to people and ask this question, what happens after this life? There's definitely like a strong connection in most people with like, is there a life to come and is there a God, or is there a higher power?
Sure.
And so it sounds like your belief that there's no life to come probably came from the belief that God doesn't exist, or do you think?
So it's okay. There's a little bit of a subjective. Is there a life after this? And I would make the argument that we're all organic material. So you die and get buried in the ground, and assuming that you're not encasing yourself in concrete, eventually, like, you kind of just get taken back up into the world in a roundabout way. There's a cycle to which everything happens.
Energy, but as far as like a conscious,
so you're essentially living on in the sense of, eventually you're kind of becoming part of the ecosystem itself, and whether that's to plants or other animals or even with other people, it's kind of like this continuous cycle.
I would say it's pretty safe to say that's not our personality. It's just our energy that goes somewhere else and it gets dispersed. I don't
think so. It's one of those things where I can't ever say that I know anything, because I don't. I wouldn't say that I would be quite as arrogant to say that. So to say that there absolutely is no God, I can't say, because it's not something that I'd be able to prove. I just don't think that there is one. And it's kind of the same thing with afterlife, in the sense of your mind, spirit thing goes somewhere else in some type of cognitive, in some type of cognitive capacity. I don't think that that's the case, and I think really what it comes down to is because I just don't think that. I don't feel like I want to waste my time. Seems a bit extreme, but spend time contemplating and thinking and worrying about something that I don't believe will be there anyway.
One of the things I do believe is people who don't think about the life to come generally are okay. So if you're open to the possibility that there's another life,
sure.
The Bible talks about a heaven and a hell and judgment day, that we're held accountable to God, and we'll spend eternity with God in a right relationship or being punished. Most people who don't worry about that generally believe that, well, if it came down to that, and if that was true, I think I'd be one of the good guys,
I suppose.
And so, like, why worry about something? So it's like, I'll just do my best in this world, and
what happens, happens.
And what happens, but I'm pretty sure that I will be in with the good crowd,
That's probably a very reasonable assumption.
Yeah.
Or thing to say. And I don't know. It's not something that really has crossed my mind before. But I mean, you could follow that line and say, sure.
And
but that makes sense.
Part of the thinking there is I guess if I was to worry about heaven or what comes after this life, okay, so I'm doing good things now, right? And if my eternal future is based on what I do now, then it kind of takes away from my motivation, because if I'm just doing things for a better afterlife, then I guess I'm doing them for selfish reasons.
Right.
See what I'm saying? And so it actually becomes kind of like, I actually find like a lot of people just don't even want to discuss it, because it's like, okay, well, even if there is an afterlife, I don't want to be seen as doing the things I do in order to earn it.
One way or the other, everything that we do is ultimately for selfish reasons. You can argue your way back to that anyway, right? You go and you help people. Nobody helps people just for the sake of helping people. You're helping people because it makes you feel like you're doing something. There's a sense of gratification with that. So everything that we do has
I appreciate that. I think
selfish motivations.
I think that's true.
But just because something has a selfish motivation doesn't necessarily mean that the in between.
Well, there's some motivations that are more selfish than others.
Sure. Sure, but I mean,
So like if
I'm helping someone with my daily life or daily doing, and sure, there is a selfish component to it, because I feel like I'm going to work and doing something worthwhile.
You feel fulfilled,
right? But someone's benefiting from it at the outside.
Yeah.
So if I ultimately end up getting some type of gratification out of that, and I'm helping someone.
Kill two birds with one stone. You're helping someone else.
I don't care so much.
Yeah.
But no, what you're saying, I think, is very true. Is doing something just because you think that you're supposed to, because there's an end goal at the end of it.
Yeah.
Then it's not
It takes a little away from it.
It's not true intentions. I think intentions are probably more meaningful than the underlying action itself.
Now, just so you understand, kind of like the Christian perspective, like
sure.
So I do believe I'm going to heaven. I do believe in heaven and hell, and I don't think I deserve it.
Okay.
But just the whole idea of going to heaven, to me, it's and the understanding is we can have a right relationship with our Creator. So if as a Christian, if you believe there's a heaven and a hell, and heaven is not necessarily like all about me, it's more I want to be with my Creator. So I guess the Bible actually teaches God is our reward. Heaven, it's not like being in heaven and the streets of gold and all of these. Those are kind of like descriptions of how nice it is or how wonderful it is, but it's kind of like earthly comparisons to a heavenly concept that we can't even understand. So, but it's more about relationship. Being in a right relationship with God is the reward. Like God Himself is the reward. Knowing God and having a good relationship with Him.
Okay.
So, I guess the reason I'm bringing that up is because it doesn't have to be seen as a selfish thing. If the focus of attention is not on me and my personal joy, if it's on the joy of being with my Creator, then the attention is on God and being with God.
Okay.
Of course, I want to avoid hell,
Okay.
Sure. I guess that would be, and like you're saying, like there's selfish motivations behind everything we do. So I do see, like of course I want to be with God, and that would give me great joy, and of course I want to avoid hell because, I wouldn't want to go through that kind of punishment, So, but the thing about if I'm doing enough good to get to heaven, and am I doing the good for the right reasons? Most religions teach some kind of a reward after this life.
Sure.
Right? Christianity, and it's a reward based on the good we've done. Christianity actually says, well, the good we do, we ought to do anyway. So like for you as a doctor, I mean, you're using, I believe, your God-given abilities and skills and the time and the training that, and you're using it to great advantage. And it's great that you're doing that, but at the same time, you should do that. Like we should all use our God-given abilities as best as we can to help our fellow man. And if God exists, I believe he does, he would say, I'm glad you're using what I've given you for the right reasons. You should do that. It's kind of, to simplify it, if just based on my knowing you're a doctor, I know that if someone fell down, you would help them up, But you wouldn't like think, oh, what a great person I am. You would be like, thank you, I'm glad I had the opportunity to help that person.
Right.
And I should have, because it's the right thing to do. The problem comes in as far as like the evil we do, the bad things we do, the selfish things, the Bible talks about, like the 10 Commandments, don't steal, don't lie, don't, the selfish things we do, we shouldn't do, and yet we know better. And so most religions would say, well, you can use the good things you do to pay for the bad things you ought not to do. Christianity actually says, no, the good things you do, you ought to do anyway.
Right.
And the bad things you're going to be held accountable for. So how can I sit here and say, well, I think I'm going to heaven? I know I've broken every one of the 10 Commandments in some form or another.
Sure.
But that's where Jesus comes in. He paid the punishment that I couldn't pay. So do I want to go out and be a good person? Yes, not to earn heaven, but because heaven's already been earned for me, So my job as a teacher, I want to help, I teach here in the city. I want to help, and it's all disadvantaged young people.
Sure.
I want to give them my best effort, not to earn heaven or earn any kind of kudos from God, more as an expression of thanksgiving and gratitude in this life. And so Christianity becomes a way of living out our gratitude to God for what he's done for us. And so you as a doctor could do the same thing, that is an expression of gratitude to your Creator for, everything he's blessed you with, and also for, if as a Christian, for me, it's the gift of salvation in the first place, which I don't deserve,
Sure.
So I like to, I'm sorry, I don't want to sound like I'm preaching or anything, but a lot of people have a misunderstanding that Christianity, or any religion really, actually most religions are, this idea that you can earn heaven, and Christianity basically is very different, very unique, because it says, no, heaven's been earned for us. When we put our trust in Christ, he satisfied God's sense of justice. It's kind of like, I see the wheels spinning.
No, I've had these
justice. Where's justice in this world, right?
So I got married in a Orthodox Orthodox Christian church. So I've had multiple sit-downs with the priest, and we've had discussions.
Oh, okay.
I was very open about
your doubts,
my opinions and beliefs and everything like that. So I've had conversations, and not just with people with Catholic or Christian faith, but
you say Orthodox, you mean Eastern Orthodox? Oh, okay.
Yeah. I've had conversations with, I can't say everybody, because obviously that's not possible, but people of multiple different faiths and backgrounds and beliefs. And I don't know. Everybody, you can sit there and you can go back and forth. Well, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. And then you'd have an answer or an explanation or a reasoning behind it. And it's just not something that
I mean, do you think it would be a toss-up between your belief in science and your belief that if God exists, there shouldn't be such evil in the world? Would one be more important than the other, or is as far as believing in God?
I think I just feel like there's provable reality, the facts that we have from our perceptions and all of that, and that's really all that I don't really have a strong faith-based, I don't know how to explain it. I don't really put much time or effort into thinking or wondering about things that I can't
prove.
That just aren't there. I mean, some things there's so many known unknowns that we just can't kind of figure out. But I don't really think that there's this outweighs this or this outweighs that. It's just kind of my lack of, I would say that my lack in belief of a higher power or of an afterlife are not so much founded in there's so much bad, so how could there be this higher good power thing,
right?
And more just in
so more science.
It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah,
kind of a thing. I don't know. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Because one of the I guess,
or I guess the idea and concept in and of itself don't make a whole lot of sense to me. And then I think also the need or desire for people, and this is not just Catholics, this is people of multiple different religions or spirit, the feel of the need to explain things that are
unexplainable.
Where all this came from and why it started. Is it really an important idea at the end of all of it? No. It's just, it's easy to say, oh, it was just something that snapped their fingers and all of this kind of came about. And that's just kind of a, for lack of a better word, lazy way of explaining things. I think the more ambiguous, open-ended aspect of certain things is kind of more interesting than kind of a blanket, thick stripe saying, "Oh, this explains everything. Now life, has meaning." I just, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's what it is for me. The more I read the Bible, the more I'm convinced, of it.
Sure.
And I try to have conversations with anyone, these kind of conversations.
Yeah.
Not to convince people, because I don't think I can.
Right.
But to give people food for thought. Sure. And to try to correct some thinking about the Bible. Because a lot of people, their only impression of it is what they read as a little kid, or what they, or their impression is what they only listen to the skeptics. I'm sorry, I have an alarm going on.
No, you're cool.
So the only opinion they have of the Bible is other people's opinions. A lot of people don't read it for themselves, or if they did, it was when they were young,
Sure.
And now you have an adult mind, you'll look at it differently, But I would have to say, I totally believe in science. I mean, man's ability to discover information for himself. I see it as a God-given gift of logic and reasoning and experimentation and the whole scientific method. It's a gift from God, and I benefit from it every day, At the same time, I don't think it would be possible without an ordered universe. How is it that we can depend on the results of science? Well, because there's order in the universe,
Okay.
So I see science as something fitting into a larger realm, that God, being the creator, has created a universe that has order, so that we can discover a certain amount of knowledge that's beneficial, and we should use our our efforts. But is that because it's a smaller subset of the larger, the creation? Do I think that God himself should be subject to that same criteria? Not so much. As a matter of fact, I believe if God could be experimented on and discovered scientifically, it wouldn't be God, because that would mean that God is subject to our, like in the same way that electricity is a much more powerful force than us. I'm talking about like the sum total of electricity. But because we know the rules that govern it, we can control electricity and use it for our own advantage, and we can we can manipulate it. If God was like that, where we can manipulate God through following certain physical laws, then it wouldn't be God. We would be God. We'd be in control of this force, this thing. And
someone sitting on the other side of the table, that just sounds like, to someone sitting on the other side of the table, right? I mean, to me, that just is it's an easy, a big stretch to say, well, a higher power couldn't be or shouldn't be perceivable or able to be identified because if it were, then it wouldn't be the higher power that I believe it to be. So it's just, I understand what you're saying. I hear what you're saying.
So I mean,
it's very often like when I say that there's always a back and forth, and it makes sense to you.
It's a healthy back and forth. I mean, if you think about it, if there's the possibility of an eternity after this life, then it actually is logical to want to think about that much longer stretch of time than the short time we have here on Earth. To think about it and to prepare for it, to learn about it. And for me as a Christian, my view of eternity totally affects my view of this short life here, where this is my one chance. Like, if I believe I'm going to be in heaven for eternity after I die, that means I'm going to be I'm not going to be in the presence of where there's this balance between good and bad, right? And so there's going to be things I can do here on Earth that I would never be able to do in heaven. For example, to show courage, because there's not going to be any danger in heaven. How can I show courage in heaven? This is my only chance to do that. There's a lot of things we can do here in this. Like I say, this it's not completely evil, but it's not completely good. It's like this once in a lifetime existence that we will never experience again, and I want to do it to honor God, as an expression of thanks, to honor my Creator, to live out a life of service and dedication and bravery, courage, all the different things that I won't ever be able to do again, if that makes sense.
It does. I
mean, you don't have to agree with it to say that it makes sense.
It's not that I would necessarily agree with.
Right.
Still, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's just.
And and I know an atheist will say, well, this is our one life to live, make the best of it. And then they're saying it, I don't know, not for the same reasons, but it's the same kind of perspective.
It's the same general notion. Just
make the most of it.
With a different intent or context behind it. So, I hear you.
So I just try to encourage people to think about the possibilities, and pursue that. Don't to not pursue it with the possibility that there is an eternity, and a lot of good, well-intentioned and very smart people who would testify to the Christian faith. They're worth giving a shot, and at least the Bible itself,
Well, actually, on my bucket list of things to do before I end up dying is to actually read the Bible in its entirety and to read the Quran and to read kind of all of the different major religious text, or to get a better idea behind all of them.
Yeah.
Just.
And I'd encourage you to, like, when you read the Bible, realize it's a library. It's not just one book. You know?
Yeah.
The Quran is, one book written by one man. But the Bible, the more I read it, the more I'm impressed by it, just by the way 40 different authors from different continents, different walks of life, different time periods, all come together around this common theme of a relationship broken with God and being restored by God, through what God did on the cross, the person of Jesus. So it's very different than to just look at it as a lot of people have different ways of looking at it, but but to see it as, so it's not like a novel that you have to read in order, and that sort of thing. So give you some food for thought. Probably things you've already thought about.
In our conversation here, sure, but I mean, past this, there won't be.
Right.
It's just kind of where I am. It's kind of where I am.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've had conversations with family members, and they're like, "Oh, well, when you get older, your mind will change." I'm like, I don't think so. But I mean, it's fine.
Well, I'm going to pray it does,
Sure.
And
you can do that all you like. Whatever makes you happy.
I mean, I don't know you, but I would want to see you in heaven, you know, and that's, I think, there are different reasons people use religion. They want to build their church or their prestige or their power somehow, or, and that's unfortunate, but don't know you, but I would want the best for you. I want God's blessing for you. So.
I appreciate that. That's very nice of you.
So
I wish you the best of luck with your.
Can I give you the information where you can see this? I usually
sure.
I usually ruminate on it a little bit and write something about it.
Sure.
Probably would be a few days before I get it on here, but.
If you don't mind me asking, so you said you're Christian or Catholic?
Christian, yeah.
Which sect is Christianity?
It's non-denominational.
Okay.
Really, all that means is instead of being really committed to the kind of the traditions of a particular denomination, we really try our best to get back to, okay, what does the Bible say before all those traditions set in, So, and on the back of there there's a blog where you can look, and like within a couple days you should be able to see this.
Okay.
So,
cool.
All right.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Have a good rest of your night.
I'm going to say God bless you.
Sure. That's fine.
All
That's
right.
fine. I'm not one of those people who
be offended by that.
No.
Yeah.
It's all good intention, right?
Right.
You're just being you.
Yeah.
There's
Exactly.
nothing wrong with me.
Yeah. Thanks.
No problem.